Hello, and welcome to Unity of Fredericksburg. My name is Andrea, and I'm pleased to welcome all of you to Unity of Fredericksburg weekly online gathering. At Unity of Fredericksburg, we are advancing the movement of spiritual awakening and transformation through unity, a positive path for spiritual living. For those of you watching on YouTube, live or later, be sure to say hi in the chat thread, like this video, and to subscribe to the Unity of Fredericksburg YouTube channel. If you are able to attend live, we encourage you to join us in the Zoom community room for the full Sunday morning experience, including music, prayer, and connection. Send an email to info@uofva.org to receive the Zoom link. And for everyone local to Central Virginia, Unity of Fredericksburg offers a variety of fun and enriching in-person gatherings every month. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter at uofva.org for all the details. Our message today comes from our minister, Reverend Cheryl. And now, here's Reverend Cheryl.
Hello, friends. I'm so glad to be here with you. Whether you're here with us live or watching later, welcome to Unity of Fredericksburg. So in 2023, one of our themes is talking about unity foundations. So we know that unity is a set of principles and practices. So we have been doing some talking about principles, kind of like what is what we call God and what are we. And so for this month, we're going to be talking about some unity practices for living a happy and prosperous life. So in the month of June, it's going to be a 3-part series. All right. 3 steps that empower you to work with your own thoughts and feelings. 3 steps that improve your agility and resilience as you move through the things that happen in your life. 3 steps that improve the quality of how you experience life. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? So today is step 1. Step 2 will be on June 11th. And step 3 will be on the 25th. On the 18th, we'll have a guest speaker talking about Juneteenth. So where do these 3 steps come from? Well, steps 2 and 3 are key practices that are laid out by Unity founders all the way back in the late 1800s. Unity founders Charles and Myrtle Fillmore were working on building the Unity movement, and they were so busy that they asked Dr. Emily Cady to write about what it is, what this belief system is that we call unity. And those lessons came out in a serial fashion in Unity magazine and were later compiled into a book. Here's my handy dandy old copy of Lessons in Truth. And these 2 steps that I'm talking about, steps 2 and 3, we're talking about 1 today. Steps 2 and 3 are known by those of you who've been in Unity for a long time as denials and affirmations. So we're going to circle back and talk about denials, or what I call intentional release, next week on June 11th. And on the 25th, we're going to talk about affirmations. But today, here's the step to do before you move into any of that, into release or affirmation. And I call this step acknowledgement. What do you say? I haven't heard about that in the founders' writings. Well, we do know that things change as time goes on, right? Our language changes, our perspective changes on things. And since the Unity movements was founded in the late 1800s, there has been the advent of modern psychology and all kinds of things that we have learned through the social movements as we all learn and grow together. So one might call this a new step in this process of practices that we offer in Unity. But I would say the seed of this practice that we're talking about today of acknowledgement, it's right there in the founders' writings, particularly within the writing of Myrtle Fillmore, as she talks about her process of healing and talks about our threefold nature. our threefold nature being body and mind and spirit. So our spiritual practices, for them to be useful and practical for us, need to address the whole of our being. It's not as if our spiritual practice is something totally separate and disengaged from our bodies and our human lives. We need to have spiritual practices that embrace all of it. So the beginning of mastering our own consciousness is acknowledging how things are in our human lives right here, right now. And that's my title for today. Right here, right now. So before we can deal with our stuff, we must acknowledge our stuff. We must acknowledge and get real about what's happening with us right here, right now. And that's step one. Before we take action in consciousness by working with our thoughts and feelings and all of these things, the first thing we need to do is get real about what's happening in our lives right now. So one of the best examples of this that I've ever heard came from a teacher that I had the privilege of being in class with out at Unity Village when I was becoming a licensed Unity teacher. And this would have been probably around 2016, 2017. And that teacher is Reverend Kelly Isola. And here is the example that she gave that really helps me to understand this. And it's the example of the crying baby. So I'd like for you to imagine right now, as we say in the theater, set aside your disbelief. And just imagine that somewhere in your house, there's a crying baby, whether or not that's a part of your life right now or not. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Well, I think the first thing you're going to do, if the baby's crying, is pick up the baby, right? Pick up the baby, soothe the baby, take care of whatever the immediate concern is with the baby, right? So maybe the baby needs a fresh diaper, maybe the baby needs something to eat. What we don't do is we don't stand over the baby and say some affirmations and hope that that'll make it better, right? Before we take action in our mind and get all spiritual about it or whatever, we take care of what's happening right here, right now. So whatever the crying baby is in your life, the first step is to acknowledge. Pay attention to what's going on right here, right now. Now, I'll mention that not all of us really have an understanding of how to do that, because we kind of we're all about action and doing things and not kind of noticing what it is that's going on. So the first step in this process of acknowledgement is to pause and notice. Pause and notice what's happening in your body. Pause and notice. Take the time to feel your feelings in whatever the moment is, whatever the circumstance is that is the crying baby in your life right now. So this pause and notice, I have to say, is one of the simplest and most powerful spiritual practices that I know of, is just developing that capacity to, instead of diving into and going down the rabbit hole and jumping into action, just pause and notice what you're doing. You can do that with a sense of humor and a sense of loving. It doesn't have to be judgmental. Just notice what the words are that are coming up in your head, what you're doing. Take a moment to notice your surroundings. Notice your body, your feelings, the thoughts coming up. Just notice. And this is the beginning of acknowledgement. Now, I want to be clear that we're not talking about emergency situations here. And this is not a talk about how to handle it when, someone falls down and breaks their leg or something. This, what happens with that is like we take care of whatever needs to be taken care of, and then we do some processing later, right? We use these steps that we're talking about to process later. But we're just talking about as you go through your life, as you go through your interactions with family or neighbors or work or at the store or in traffic, and how we can navigate that the most successfully. So the next part of this acknowledgement process is settling or soothing. Just like when we talked about the baby example, you're going to pick up the crying baby, and then what are you going to do, right? Many of us have had the opportunity to spend some time with tiny babies, and what do? You soothe them, rub their back, jiggle them, sing to them, hum to them, that kind of thing, settle them. And you're also teaching them how they can soothe themselves too. So the next process for us in this practice of acknowledgement is settling or soothing. So one of the things that's really wonderful that has been coming about in mainstream culture is an awareness of and teachings around trauma and processing trauma. And there are some really, really wonderful teachers and experts out there these days to tell us about that. And I have an example today. It's from a book that I read. Now, this book is mostly focused on awareness of racial tensions, particularly between African Americans and Caucasian Americans. But the author, and his name is Resmaa Menakem. Here's his book, My Grandmother's Hands. Resmaa Menakem. And it's a wonderful book. And he is a trauma therapist. So what I'm talking about today is not so much the topic of the overall book, but some of the practices that he has to share with us about soothing and settling ourselves in the moment. So let me read a couple of quotes from him. So here's one. Learning to settle your body and practicing wise and compassionate self-care are not about reducing stress. They're about increasing your body's ability to manage stress, as well as creating more room for your nervous system to find coherence and flow. So, not about managing stress. It's like not about reducing stress. It's about managing stress. And here's one more quote. Settling is not the same thing as healing. It is an all-important foundation for healing. A settled body invites and accepts efforts to mend it. An unsettled one tends to resist those efforts. So just saying back to this analogy of the crying baby. When you find yourself in a situation, a circumstance that is bringing about stress for whatever reason, what can you do to settle yourself, to soothe yourself in the moment? And this is a part of what this practice is that I'm talking about, acknowledgement. So here are some practices that Resmaa Menakem shares. So one, and a lot of these would be things that you probably already do, but really think about them, or you can try something different. One is focus on the breath, right? Just in that moment when you find yourself getting all out of sorts about something, focus on the breath. Or do what is called grounding. Now, grounding can happen in any number of ways, but one of the most wonderful ways is to actually get out in nature and get your feet on the ground, maybe even take off your shoes and socks. Grounding, so that rather than flying away with all your thoughts and feelings and all that stuff, grounding. Another thing that Risma Menakem suggests is bringing to mind a person or an animal that helps you to feel secure and safe. And so just inviting that presence into your circumstance. Another thing you can do is just spend time doing a scan of the body, just noticing the feeling of your feet on the floor, your seat in the chair, the air against your skin. You might recognize this as frequently used practices in our meditation time that we do at the end of every message here, because these are all kind of soothing and settling and focusing practices. A couple of others that Risma Menakem mentions, which I think are really wonderful, is humming, or just having the breath have some sound with your exhalation. Again, if you think of what you might do to settle a baby, how many of us would hum or sing a song? And it's immediately soothing. Another thing is, you can see me moving now, is rocking. And I can remember when my son was a baby, I actually went through 3 different rocking chairs trying to get that boy to sleep through the night. So rocking, whether it's side to side or back and forth, is a way that you can settle yourself, soothe yourself, get out of whatever reaction you're in about something, and take care of yourself. You can also just almost give yourself a massage, soothe the skin, just kind of stroke your hands along the body to just get it to settle. So this is all about self-care, right? And self-care is something that we're hearing more and more and more about from experts, from wise people, saying, how do we do this humanity, this being human? And self-care, when we talk about self-care here, we're not talking about having a spa day or having a fine adult beverage or something superficial. We're talking about you being the one who is caring for you in a responsible way. And it's all about fitness, our fitness as human beings. As we care for ourselves, we take a break to care for ourselves regularly, we are more fit to handle whatever it is that comes along, right? We're not saying that we're getting rid of all the stuff that's going to come along, because life happens, right? But we are helping ourselves with our capacity to manage whatever happens, because whatever it is that's coming along will be a new phase for growth and for change in our lives, right? Because things in the outer world are always changing. So one of the things that we all know, and some of you might have these thoughts coming up in your head, well, whatever's coming along, I don't want things to change. I don't like change. I don't want change. So just think about for a moment the last unwelcome opportunity for growth or change that came up in your life. Just think about that for a second. Do you know yourself well enough to know that, there might be some automatic patterns that this is how I do. This is how I react. When something happens, I do this. Are you aware that some of these habitual actions could be actions that are driven by your woundedness, whatever it is that may have hurt you in the past? And our human brain, which is a wonderful, dedicated servant to all of us, our human brain, but it wants to keep us in the comfort zone. It wants to keep things pain-free, and it will encourage us to avoid growth opportunities when they come up, skip right over it and move on, plow through and not really notice what's going on around us. So we all have these habits and patterns when we're kind of on autopilot that doesn't really help us to be agile, to be responsive to what's really going on. If we're not paying attention, if we're not taking that moment to pause and notice, we'll just go right into kind of autopilot. And also, here's where it gets particularly interesting. Many of us have spiritual practices that help us to avoid or delay or ignore or bypass what's happening right here and right now. So there's a word for this. It's called spiritual bypassing. And that's when we use our spiritual tools to avoid our stuff rather than being with our stuff. So this shows up when we are knee deep in doo-doo, but we're up here going, it's all good. Well, when you're in knee deep in doo-doo, sometimes it's important to acknowledge, wow, this doesn't feel good, and to just be in that moment. So not only our brains, but our spirituality can lead us to not be acknowledging what's going on right here, right now. So this practice of acknowledgement is an essential first step to help us with a process of grief and loss, to help us dealing with physical illness and injury, to help us with conflict in relationships, whatever growth opportunities are showing up. Acknowledgement is the first step to us managing this in consciousness and taking care of ourselves. So let's just review before we go into a time of meditation. The first step with acknowledgement is paying attention to what's happening right here, right now. Pause and notice. Notice how your body feels. Notice the emotions that are coming forth. Notice the thoughts. Even if the thoughts will frequently be associated with instinctual reactions like run away or fight, fight, flight, freeze. They might be like, I don't know what to do, what's going on. Just notice, pause and notice. And then take steps to settle and soothe. Settle and soothe yourself. So soothe the crying baby. This is the crying baby in your life, whatever it is. Calm yourself, care for yourself. Acknowledge what's right here and right now. And all of this is supported by our understanding of the one presence and one power. That this is us taking the first steps to deal with the human nature aspect of things so that we can be grounded and confident when change happens. And change is going to happen, right? So let's take this practice of acknowledgement and move into a time of meditation together. So I'd like to ask you to take a few deep breaths. And if you wish, you can allow your outer eyes to drift closed. And let's just come to the here and now. Let's set aside all of the busyness of your day so far and all the plans of what's going to happen next, what needs to be done. Just set that all aside and quiet the mind. Open the heart space. And just acknowledge your body as it is right here, right now. Feel your feet on the floor. Move your awareness from your feet up through your ankles and your shins. Just feel your knees, how they are right now, whether they're extended or bent. What kind of seat are you in? Feel the back of your legs against your seat. Feel your bottom grounded in your seat. Continue this scan, moving up through the body and anywhere you find any disruption, any feeling of dis-ease, whether it's a little pain, a little stiffness, just witness it. We aren't here to do anything, to take action, to make changes. We're just here to witness, just notice, just be okay with however it is. As we continue to move our focus up through the body, I'd like to invite you to just begin a gentle rocking motion. Could be side to side or front to back, just a gentle rocking motion. As we continue to just move our awareness up through the torso, through your heart and lungs, along your shoulders, down your arms, through the elbows, to the hands. Again, just gently rocking, witnessing, noticing your hands wherever they are resting. Feel the air moving against your skin, bringing your awareness now up through the neck, into your head, all along your scalp. Noticing your ears, your jaw. Is it tight or is it relaxed? If it's tight, take a moment to just relax. Just notice where you have tension. Notice your eyes, your nose, skin of your face. Continue this gentle rocking. And let's move into a few moments of silence together, or as I like to say, stillness, because I don't find that sitting in silence is actually silent for me. So a few moments in the stillness together, right here, right now. Now let's begin to bring our awareness back. As we come back to the current moment and the room that we're in, we acknowledge I am calm, I am serene, I am grounded, I am assured. Go ahead and allow your eyes to drift open. And let's finish our time together with an affirmation. So here's the affirmation, and I like to put my hand on my heart. That's part of a grounding practice that I have to make sure that my affirmation is not kind of floating around just in my head. It's in my body. It's in my heart space. So here's the affirmation. I care for myself as I acknowledge the here and now, and I am grateful. It's a little bit longer than I usually do, so listen again. I care for myself as I acknowledge the here and now, and I am grateful. Say it with me one more time. I care for myself as I acknowledge the here and now, and I am grateful. So it is, my friends. So thank you for being here today. I hope to welcome you back again sometime. And I'm hoping that those of you who are watching on YouTube will consider joining us in the Zoom room sometime soon. Just reach out to that. You see the website address that's at the bottom of says right there, uofva.org. You can send an email to info@uofva.org, request the Zoom link, and join us in community. So that's it for me right now. I am going to hand it back to Andrea, our service leader for today.
Thanks for watching the weekly broadcast from Unity of Fredericksburg. Visit our website, uofva.org, to learn more about our mission of spiritual awakening and transformation, and support our ministry with your financial donation. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.